So grateful to be here. Are you fully here right now? I mean, I know that a part of you is here right now, of course, but are you fully here now? Well, in case you're not, let's get a bit more present with a collective deep breath. Go ahead and take a deep inhale. Let that go. Good. See if you can unclench the jaw. Yeah. And just allow the shoulders to melt down the back. Oh yeah, that's better. As a collective, we've been struggling with connecting to the now. Lockdowns have left us feeling more separate and disconnected than ever. Logic would say that we're more connected than ever, right? We can fly across the planet in less than one day. We have cell phones that are more advanced than the technology that took Apollo 11 to the moon. We have social media that allows us to comment on every life event that you care to share, but this sensation of separation, this feeling of disconnection, can't be solved from the outside in. It must be solved from the inside out. Our deep cultural ache for connection leaves us perpetually hungry, grasping for false intimacy wherever we can scrounge it, whether down in the depths of social media, at the bottom of a cookie jar, or over a bottle of wine. No one relates, right? You see, anything can be a treat or a treatment for something that you don't want to feel. It's about the awareness that we bring to it. Right? A piece of chocolate can be a treat, or it can be a treatment to avoid our deep loneliness. A TV show can be a great treat, or it can be a treatment for our crippling anxiety. The distinction is, am I doing this to move toward myself, or am I doing this to move further and further away from myself? Connection versus disconnection. So, truth time. I used to be a pro at disconnection. Like, I am talking about a first-rate disconnection champion. My special skill was in disembodying my body, avoiding sensation I had no interest in feeling, with a finesse for self-criticism. I took a rather extreme sport version of this with a severe case of anorexia for much of my 20s. Anorexia, or any obsession or addiction, like the phone or substances, is a means of disembodying one's body. You see, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. Whenever we are lost in obsession or addiction, the question isn't, why am I obsessing or behaving this way? The question is, what feeling am I disconnecting from with this behavior? What am I trying to avoid? What is so intolerable that I have to escape my own reality and disconnect completely from myself? For me, when I was starving, that was really all there was to think about. The anorexia, though, wasn't the problem. It was a byproduct. It was a symptom of the problem. The problem was that I didn't want to connect to, look at, or feel what was actually happening in my life at the time. I didn't want to connect to the fear I had around starting a new career. I didn't want to connect to the feeling of brokenheartedness from unrequited love. I didn't want to connect to myself through these feelings because I didn't know how. They felt huge. They felt like they would swallow me whole. So instead of connecting and getting well, I disconnected and became more and more sick. It wasn't until I began to cultivate a more intimate relationship with myself. And I define intimacy as into me see. Into me see. I began seeing myself more clearly through practices like mindfulness, yoga, meditation, self-compassion, breath work, that I began to reconnect. And in truth, save my own life. In today's climate of on the go and fast as you can, learning to connect with ourselves and actually feel what we are feeling is not all the rage. Why? Because you don't have to. We can bury ourselves deep in Instagram, or we can go really deep into whatever unconscious disconnection vortex is calling our name at the moment. But we're forgetting something extremely important. You can't disconnect from one sensation without blurring all the rest. If you numb grief, you numb joy. If you numb fear, you numb love. All of our sensations, from pleasure to pain, deserve a seat at the proverbial table. We learn through contrast. You wouldn't know up if you didn't know down. You wouldn't know love if you didn't know fear. The opposite allows us to recognize that the other exists. But we aren't taught to stay with our bodily sensations and stay open to the information that they have. No, even as children, we fall down and what do our parents say? "Oh, sweetheart, you're fine. You're okay." And believe me, I understand the tactic here of rerouting a meltdown, but the messaging stands alone. You don't need to feel that. And the truth is, kids do. We do. From a very young age, we are taught to self-abandon and move past it. But what if we aren't meant to move past our sensations? What if we are meant to move with them and through them? The practice I teach to connect with ourselves is about simply learning to stay. Learning to sit without reactivity with whatever is happening. It's so easy. Yeah, that's a hard no, but it is possible. Sitting with the sting of grief after a loved one has left. Sitting with the excitement of new love that has been long anticipated. Sitting with the devastating heartbreak of a tough diagnosis. Sitting with the profound joy of getting what you want. All of these sensations create a life of meaning. The full gambit is why we are here. In order to grow our capacity for learning to stay, we need to look at our relationship to presence. Our presence is our currency. It's what we have to give ourselves, and yes, it's what we have to offer others as well. Some of us will never run out of food. Some of us will never run out of money. Some of us will never run out of love, but we will all, every single one of us, run out of time. So getting present for the time that we have, it's everything. How do we do that? The breath. You know, the very first thing that you ever did upon entering this planet was breathe. And that breath has managed to stay with you every single moment ever since. The deeper the connection to the breath, the deeper the connection to ourselves. So when we find ourselves lost in story about what may or may not happen in the future, or reminiscing about that thing that happened yesterday, or 10 years ago, or when we were 5, we can return to the breath, and that will allow us to arrive now. Breathing can be voluntary or involuntary, right? You're breathing now without thinking about it, but the breath can also be lovingly manipulated to calm the nervous system, to get you back into your body and slow down. I call this slowing down the practice of savoring. Savoring is what differentiates a conscious from an unconscious experience. Now, you can have a meal on the go, or you can savor a 3-hour dinner with a loved one. You can have a casual, lascivious sexual escapade, or you can savor making love to your partner. You can talk on the phone while juggling 54 things and doing the laundry, or you can savor that conversation with your friend. They're the same actions: eating, sex, and listening, just done with completely different intentions. To savor simply means to make something last, to fully experience it with all of our available senses, to allow it to be sensational, which simply means filled with sensation. We tend to be good at savoring big things, right? Grand moments, but making the mundane meaningful, savoring those sweet little moments in between, that's really the practice I'm talking about. Savoring a sunset, a kiss, a conversation, a bite of chocolate, petting your dog. It doesn't have to be big if it's infused with presence. My mother showed me what real presence looks like the day before she died. She wanted to be outside, to bathe in the beauty of that crisp November morning. It was around 7 a.m. and no one else was awake. We were upstairs in her bedroom, and at this point, getting around wasn't easy for her. I didn't feel safe trying to get her downstairs by myself, so I made a proposal. Mom, just for now, why don't I set you up by the window in a nice cozy chair, and I'll bring you coffee and your favorite china, and it will be like being outside. She nodded with a mixture of kindness, gratitude, and total disappointment. It was the best that I could do safely. I sat her by the window, got her coffee, put it in her favorite china, and watched her savor the sensation of the breeze against her face. It was the most simple and beautiful thing I had ever seen. Coffee by the window. It was made sacred. It was pure connection, how she savored each sip, each breath, how she noticed the birds fly by, how she embodied her sweet body so wholeheartedly because she knew. This is it. This is it. And it was. We don't have to wait until we are leaving to connect. We can begin anytime. I want to offer you this phrase or mantra, if you will, that has seen me through the darkest of nights and the most glorious, pleasure-filled days. I live by this, and I hope it serves whether you're experiencing pain, pleasure, or any of the flavors in between. It's just like this for now. It's just like this for now, whatever this is. The good news is, nothing lasts forever. But the bad news is, nothing lasts forever. So if you love it, if it's filled with pleasure, please don't forsake it. Move toward it consciously. No waiting for the other shoe to drop, because it is indeed just like this for now. And if it's painful, like heartbreak or grief, move toward it. Because the only way out is through. And yes, it's just like this for now. Life is wild and precious, and in the words of Ferris Bueller, it moves pretty fast. If you don't slow down every once in a while, you could miss it. Savor it. Breathe and allow it. Let it all wash over you, the sadness, the goodness, the love, the sorrow. Let it have its way with you and stay open to the wisdom that its presence evokes. Because there is learning that can only be done through the body, through experience. You have survived 100% of the sensations that you've allowed yourself to feel. Every sensation is an invitation to dig deeper into the exquisiteness of being in a human body. The body isn't to be disconnected from. It is the vessel through which we get to explore this life. So trust it, because no feeling is final. No feeling is final until our last. So remember, this is it. It's just like this for now. Thank you so much.